Hi there. Welcome to the Healthtech Marketing Show. I'm your host, Adam Turinas. I'm the CEO of Health Launchpad, one of the companies that brings this podcast to you. I want to give a big thank you to our co-sponsors, the fantastic people from HIMSS, who have been longtime supporters of a lot of what we do. This is a show for people in health tech who care about marketing and are looking for new ideas and to kind of keep up with things that are changing the way that we market. And as we all know, one of the biggest changes is AI. And we're going to talk about AI on one of my personal passions, which is search engine optimization. I've just been an amateur SEO expert for about, I don't know, it's almost 20 years now, through some things I was doing in my personal life, through sailing, where I kind of self-taught SEO. But when I started Health Launchpad, I wanted to make search engine SEO, a kind of a key part of what we do. And so it's something I really care a lot about. And to help me with this topic, I've got two wonderful guests. I have one of my longtime partners, Karen Finn, who we've been working together now for about 4 years, isn't it, Karen? Yeah. So
I think
Karen,
so.
Yeah. Karen is also a longtime SEO person and has her own company, but she's our resident SEO expert and works with a lot of our clients. And I'm so delighted to have Mr. Danny Goodwin. Dr. Danny Goodwin. No, it's Mr. Danny Goodwin. Mr. Engine Land, to help us with this. I met Danny on a group I'm involved with about 6 months ago, and he gave a talk on the impact that AI is having on search. Talks a lot about search, SGE, Search Generative Experiences. I think that's right. He'll correct me if I'm not.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I was just, I immediately went off and wrote a blog post about it because I thought it was just so interesting. And I'm sure everybody, all the listeners out there will have read it, no doubt. But we're going to go, what we're going to cover today is like, what is the impact of AI on search? What's this SGE thing, or it's called something different now. And Danny will explain a bit about that. And then for you as healthcare technology marketers, what are some of the things that you should be worried about, thinking about right now, and some of the things that you should be planning for the future? So with that, Danny, why don't you give us a little bit about your background, and Karen will get you to when we bring you on, bring you in to join in, we'll get you to talk about yourself then. So Danny, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been the managing editor of Search Engine Land and SMX. That's our conference that we do for just over 2 years at this point. But I've been covering all things search since around 2007, and obviously seen a lot of changes over those years, with AI overviews being, I think, one of the more significant ones, and something that Google has really been building to since the beginning. So it's really interesting watching this massive shift going on right now.
Great. So yep. Karen, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll throw the first question over to Danny.
All right, sounds great. Well, as Adam mentioned, I've been working with Health Launchpad for about 4 years now, helping our clients get found online with search. And I have my own company that I help other folks get found online with search. So I'm an SEO geek.
Yeah, excellent. 3 SEO geeks together. So, all right, let's start off with AI, SGE, the new thing it's called. Mm-hmm. Danny, what's the deal?
So, yeah, just in case anybody hasn't been following it. So last year in May, Google launched what was then called Search Generative Experience, which was an opt-in experiment, basically, where Google would create AI-generated answers to search queries. That was, again, totally opt-in, but that changed this year. So at Google I/O, they basically launched it fully. Well, not fully, but it's officially out of the search lab. So it's slowly rolling out to all users at this point. It's still a little messed up because if you signed up for Search Labs, you see something different than the normal person sees. So it's a little tricky in that way, especially if you're doing SEO, to see the actual answer sometimes that Google is showing to a person who never opted into the experiment. So that's a little fun, tricky part. But yeah, basically at this point, there's a ton of experimentation with it. There's different formats. And what was interesting leading up to Google I/O before they announced the official launch of it, they were starting to pull back on it a little bit. So I believe it was at its height somewhere around 60 to 65% of all queries, and now it's down to about 15% of all Google queries that the AI overview answers show for. So I think part of that will evolve, and I expect the numbers to go back up in the other direction, but obviously, within the first couple of weeks of launching, as people tend to do, they tend to try to break these things. So we saw all these issues with Google showing suggestion or answers that were suggesting that you eat rocks or drink urine to pass kidney stones, and all these other, and put glue on pizza, and it, like, everybody in the world covered it, and it was, you know, probably the biggest PR nightmare that you could expect to have for Google. So it's been a fun year of experimentation, we'll say, for Google. And I will say at this point they haven't got it right, but you know, it's going to change. It's basically a beta product, but they're pushing it out because I think there's a lot of pressure on them to push out AI, because everybody's pushing out AI right now.
Well, and it's Gemini that's powering that.
Yes, powering that. Yes, they're basically, Gemini is basically going to power everything. It's already going. It's into search. It's into ads. It's into all their other stuff to varying degrees, and they have different versions of Gemini too.
Yeah, so it kind of feels like the world's going to evolve into, you know, a Microsoft OpenAI world, a Google Gemini world, and then maybe Amazon Anthropic and Claude. So it's very interesting watching how this changes.
Yeah, and Meta's trying to get in there too with their stuff.
They have to. Everybody has to.
Everybody does. Yep.
So Karen, you and I talk about this a lot. What are some of the things that you're concerned about, that you're seeing with your clients, maybe in terms of SEO and the impact on rankings?
What I've noticed is I've got a few clients who are working to get more content out more quickly, you know, the promise of all the generative AI. And so they've been doing that for a few months, and every single one of them has seen a drop in their SEO.
So all your clients have seen a drop in SEO?
Everyone who has leaned heavily into getting more content out more quickly because the generative AI has seen a drop. Every single one.
Okay. So yeah, let me just spell that out, because that's really inside baseball. It's like, if you've taken advantage of the power of generative AI to create more content faster, then you've seen a drop in your search engine rankings. I know somebody who might be suffering from that, actually. Me. I think I sort of, this is like a confessional, but we Karen and I actually have spent a lot of time on SEO for Health Launchpad, and we've been noticing it. And I've actually just stopped. I've stopped using generative AI to write content. I might use it for research and for helping with an outline, but I'm not using it to write anymore. So I've probably got to correct what I've been doing for the last 3 to 6 months. So, God. All right. So Danny, what is that? Is Karen's theory right there? What do you think?
So there are multiple things going on too that are beyond AI overviews. I know we're talking mostly about that. I think that is part of it for sure. But also, Google has been doing a ton of algorithm changes, especially since late last year, because and aside from all the PR issues they've had with the AI overview results, there's been a lot of mainstream press about the quality of Google search declining. You know, people are just kind of upset that they can't. It feels like to a lot of people, you just can't find the answer you're looking for anymore, because it's like you have to go past here's all the ads, here's all the search features, here's all the other things just to get to it. I was chatting with somebody. We just had a conference last week, our SMX conference, and it spurred a conversation with an industry person, one of my good friends, who basically told me, like, you can be doing all the things right now, but Google is just further encroaching on the space that, it used to be there for websites to get that traffic. And it's like, there's really no solution to some of that stuff. And AI overviews, again, that's more pushing the search results down. I
noticed that myself. The real estate, right? It used to be 3 sponsored rankings, then the organic search results, then a block of three. Now it's 6.
Yep.
Then it's SG. Then it's the was it AI overview? Is that
either ads or SGE or SGE ads? It's one or the other. Yeah,
and it takes up 2/3 to 3/4 of the page.
Yep.
So before it used to be like you wanted to be in the top 5 to 10, right? Rankings. Yep. Now it's like if you're not first, if you're not number 1, in the words of Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last.
Yes.
It's because you're not going to be, you won't appear if you're at least not the top 3, right? Wait, Karen, is that?
Yes.
I mean,
I mean, top 3 has been kind of traditional, right? You want to be in the top 3 to get the traffic. Top 1, of course, is always best. But you're right. I was off working with a client earlier today, and we were doing a little bit of research, and you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling before you can find anything that you want.
Yeah, and historically, just the organic links too. I'm probably not exactly right with the percentage, but the top 3 organic results, maybe 10 years, 15 years ago, that was probably 60% of the clicks all went to the top 3. Number 1 was usually like 30, 35%. Then it drops as you go down, but like basically what Google's done is they're pushing all that down. So all the clicks that would have gone to a website now go to an AI overview or a featured snippet or an ad or one of their other answer box type of features.
So Google's the authority. I mean, that's what they keep positioning themselves as, the authority, not anybody else but them.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's but going back to what you were saying a little bit earlier, Danny, if users are advertisers complaining about it, you can totally understand.
Yep.
Content creators can totally understand, but you're saying that users are complaining about it, right?
Yes. If you every day, my feeds are just full of people like, can you believe this result? It's just kind of bemoaning the good old days. And I always, I always think there never was this magical period where Google search was perfect, but it just feels like, and I've talked to so many people, it just feels like something is fundamentally broken with Google search right now, especially if you're just trying to get organic traffic. Obviously the paid stuff is always going to go over that. You know what I mean? It's like, that's always going to be Google's priority, because that's how they make how many billions of dollars every year just from search advertising. That's their moneymaker. But if we start providing these really bad user experiences, there's a lot of new search engines popping up now that are all trying to figure out this LLM plus search, because no one's really figured it all out yet.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. Because I was kind of blown away. Like I was just at random, I just started checking ChatGPT every once in a while with some stuff, and they're starting to check the web, so it's like, and it's different. It's like, you type in a question, they're not good on a lot of stuff, obviously, and there's still hallucination problems, but it's just so stripped down. It's like, it gives you the answer you're looking for typically, Yes. So it's like, you just struggle with that, because I was comparing ChatGPT's, we'll call it search results. It's not full on search at this point, but it's just like, you compare Google and that side by side. It's like, sometimes you'll get all videos and all ads, and it's just like scrolling. I just want a simple answer.
Yeah. Well, and sorry, Carrie.
I was just agreeing. To me, it's interesting. I wonder if I'm just getting old and I don't like all the videos and I don't like all the hoo-ha that comes in place, and I just want my answer.
Yep.
So many people are involved with the videos. It's just like,
give me back my text links. Yeah. And there are the other thing is that there are generative AI tools which are actually maybe even better for search. Like, there's a lot of talk about Perplexity, being like, becoming a platform of choice for many people. It's it's a little bit geeky, but it wouldn't take much. It would, all we need is for Perplexity, Claude, and OpenAI to figure out how to train their models on real-time web, as opposed to what is it, like a year out of date now, or 6 months out of date, whatever it is. It's a period out of date. To actually, why would you then, why would you even bother with Google? Google clearly gets that.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot what me. Yeah, and I think that's what OpenAI's Sam Altman is saying. Like, nobody's quite figured out this thing, but it would be really cool to figure this out, because he's openly expressed he doesn't like Google or their model. So it's just the way to really own search, I think the only way you're going to beat Google is by doing something slightly different than Google, because you have to kind of change the game, like sort of how Google did when it came along. They just provided a way better experience than the Yahoos and all the other search engines of their time. So someone else has to do that. I don't know if it can be done, but it seems like if it's ever going to happen, it's going to happen soon, just with kind of the negative sentiment around Google right now.
It's the disruption cycle, right?
Yeah.
For decades, you couldn't imagine anybody pushing Google off their pedestal.
Yep.
It was like, who was going to do it? Like Microsoft tried it with Bing. It's a joke.
Yep.
Now it's like, oh, they must be pretty worried. Interesting. Okay, let's get practical here. So, I just want to think about this as sort of in two parts. Part one is, what should marketers do right now to try and, either try and gain a competitive advantage, or at least defend a position. And then we'll talk a little bit more about how this might evolve. So who wants first crack at that?
Karen, I'll let you go first if you'd like.
Oh my goodness. I think with everything that we have going on with AI right now, it comes back again and again to the user experience and quality content. Without that, you aren't going to have anything that anybody's going to want to read anyway. So using, I really like the experience factor. If you can add in some personal anecdotes, anything that makes it come alive, I think that makes it a whole lot better than trying to write just a dissertation that you're trying to turn in to get your grade done.
What do you mean by that? Because so that means
just stuff to kind of pump yourself up and make yourself sound, overinflated. It's not really anything that the user wants to read.
Yeah.
I think people really want to have real life experience and not anything that, they don't want to be lectured. They don't want to have all that information.
I had experienced that this week. So, I do a LinkedIn post every day. And some of them I work really hard on. I'm writing dissertations, to your point. I love this. I was like, wait, what? When you said dissertations, like I spend, I seem to write 3 a week. But I wrote this one post, which is, we changed the logo from Health Launchpad in one word, all lowercase with health in bold, to 2 words, Health Launchpad. And I just put, hey, everybody. And I just had a little graphic I created in 5 minutes that showed the logo changing and saying, I said, I didn't make a big deal about it, but we did a little brand tweak. And I said, I just want to say this will be the least exciting thing you see on LinkedIn today. That has got 3 to 4 times more engagement than anything I've done in about a month. I don't figure, why am I writing all this crap? So Danny, what's your perspective? All right, you're out there, you're a marketer, and you're thinking, I've been killing it with SEO, and suddenly I'm not. What the hell do I do?
So I think heading forward, there's really 2 parts to it. It's really, I think, focusing on diversifying your traffic sources as much as you possibly can. So, there was one of the prominent Google spokespeople, Danny Sullivan, basically said based on his own experience, he's built a couple of well-known websites in the SEO space, Search and Watch Search Engine Land, which I now edit at. And, he basically said, like the way to do it, like the way he always thought about it, and it's kind of similar in how I think. It's like, you got to think about SEO. Yes, it's important, but it's really more so important once you get people on your site that they start following you. You're putting out good enough content, so it's not just a one and done. You want to put up the type of content that goes, oh, I really like this brand or this, this website. I want to come back for more, and then this is where I think heading forward, it's going to be really hard for a lot of people because you have to do that consistently every day. And every day, whatever your cadence is, I'll just say every day for these easily say. But, it's just everything you put out, you can't have a bad day. It's sort of like, that's it. It's like, you got to raise the bar for yourself. And just become known as a place where people can go to get genuinely helpful, insightful, useful information. You just need to be that source for people, and something memorable, and just make that connection. Get people signed up for an email newsletter. If you don't have an email newsletter, make one. All this stuff is going to be incredibly valuable. Build out if your audience, wherever they're on social networks. Whether it's Meta properties or LinkedIn or wherever, there's opportunities. There are just the more kind of signals that you can send that, you're getting traffic from other sources, and it's not like 80 or 90% of your traffic is just all organic. For whatever reason, it seems like those sorts of sites tend to do better in Google. So it's almost like building up your brand, your expertise, all these things has kind of compounding benefits to you. And ultimately should, you want to basically create a brand that people expect to find in search. And if it's not found, that's more on Google than you. And you'll then sort of pressure Google to force you to rank in a way, because you're just getting all those good user signals from all these various areas. And I don't know how that sort of ties in. I've just seen it so often. I don't know if it's an algorithmic thing or if it's just, it's just those people signals, it's just, you really want to make sites that people want to go to.
I'd say, so you've both put a different spin on a sort of different sides of the same coin. So Karen, you said, be authentic, be real, and just talk in a way that connects with people. And what you've said, Danny, is, don't worry about building, to paraphrase what you're saying, is don't so much worry about having massive reach or trying to get to greater reach with SEO. Focus on building a fan base. People who don't just follow you because they clicked a link on LinkedIn, but follow you because they want to. They want to follow. And it sort of actually, it sort of also explains why something like Substack's something I don't understand. I don't understand. Why would people pay for email? I get so many bloody newsletters. The last thing I want to do is pay for another one. It's like, oh, I get it, because the stuff that's on there is really good. I mean, it is. It's there's these some ABM guys in Europe called Full Funnel IO, who I'm big fans of, and they've got a Substack, and they write every week. They write an email which is long. I mean, it is a dissertation, but it is so good. It's really, really high quality stuff, and so you want to read it. So I guess that's sort of, the don't lose focus on being authentic, and don't lose focus on, in fact, quality. Quality could not be even more important. It actually is, is the key thing. But I also think there's an undercurrent what you're both saying, which is, if you depended on SEO, get used to the fact you probably can't count on it anymore, because you don't know where it's going.
Yes. Yeah, I would say so. We've had these conversations ourselves, because obviously we want to grow our own SEO at Search Engine Land, but we've had those discussions. Like, is it just going to be the future? Is you're going to put in the same amount of work for less return? And that may be the case. We don't know that yet for sure. But again, there's a lot of change happening, and we don't know if this will stick like this forever. Things could change, but historically, if we're honest, like, traffic just keeps going down. because Google takes up more of that real estate, and they,
Well,
they try to break into all these industries and sort of suck all the traffic out from websites.
So think about, again, go back to what you were saying earlier on about the Google first page of Google. It's the first page of yours is silly because it's like it's just one long scrolling page, but the first bit that most people will actually look at. So a third of it is now paid links, sponsored links, because they've doubled that. Yeah. So again, what's that?
I was saying at least. It seems like it goes on forever.
Yeah. Sometimes I hit pages where it feels like it's half. And it's almost worse on mobile, right? And then the next third, the big block of AI, what do they call it? AI's overviews, right?
AI overviews, yep.
Yeah, the SGE stuff. And so I guess that what that leads you to is you've either got to buy, you've either got to pay more through AdWords, or what Google Ads, whatever they call it these days, to be one of the six ads, or you've got to figure out a way to insinuate yourself into that AI synopsis that they come up with. Any thoughts from either of you on how do you do that? How do you work your way into the generated piece of summary that comes out of AI overviews?
So I'd say it's unsettled science at this point, but what we know at this point is it's really about, so the way on the back end, you have to sort of understand how the back end works. And I just learned this myself. So the way that AI overviews work based on the patent is that whenever a user types in a query, Google will basically rewrite that query and then generate an answer. And then they'll go looking for citations that match their generated answer. So it's not really about like necessarily matching the query. And then with their answer, they're also trying to not just answer that query, but also think about 3 or 4 related queries that people ask and also include that in their answer. So it's a really interesting method. And this is why too we're seeing a little bit of spam sites that shouldn't probably be getting cited in AI overviews from time to time, because there are lots of examples of that being shared all over social media. And it's really the case that the same algorithm sort of spam filters that go with old school classic traditional search aren't being applied to AI overviews at this point. So on the one hand, it's potentially good for websites. That means you don't necessarily have to rank in the top 5 or 10 to be cited in the AI overviews, but it's also bad because there's going to be some spam cited in there from time to time.
Wow. Carol, what do you think about that? That was my head's exploding.
Fascinating. The questions also asked section, that they've had there for years. It sounds like they're wrapping that into the generative AI part.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I want to move on again to sort of future planning and where this might be going, and we're going to be speculating. But before I do that, I've got a question which I want to ask you, which is, I got to so something I came across. What's a Fraggle?
So it's basically a fragment of a page. So if you think about it's, obviously pages have a lot of text on them, right? So the way that search engines crawl them now, they sort of chunk the content and basically understand little sections of it. That's the easiest way to think about it.
Okay.
It's fragments, and I always forget what the goal part is, but it's fragments and something else combined. But it's basically just the way that search engines work now is they kind of vectorize all the content that comes in, tokenize it, basically. So it's like they're trying to understand all the words and how relevant they are to each other.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So basically, when you see like a featured snippet, for example, and you'll see like something bolded that sort of matches your query, that's a Fraggle.
I see.
They've looked
Got
at.
it.
Yeah, because they're not just indexing pages; they're also like looking at each individual part of a page.
Thank you for explaining that. All right. So let's kind of like. I was going to say use a crystal ball, but I don't know whether there's any point in looking any further than 6 months down the road. Where do you both think this is going to go over the next 6 months to a year? And I'm asking on behalf of any listener who's thinking like, if I'm planning my SEO and my content for the next 6 months to a year, what should I be thinking about?
I'll throw in first. I think start planning for. I think there really needs to be more integration with SEO and marketing. Just start focusing on. See, the one issue with Google rankings and like keyword data that you'll get from a tool is that's all backward facing. So I think heading forward, and I've been hearing this a lot from people I talk to in conversations, really just about understanding kind of your target audience or audiences. If you have multiple types of people that you're trying to attract, and just think about what sorts of content they actually need and want, and delivering on that, and not really think. Again, it's kind of weird for me to be saying this, like, because it's sort of flipping SEO as it's traditionally been known. It's like, oh, we know these keywords are good. But this one, it's really just more about thinking like, what are, speaking to people in their language. What are, FAQ, like frequently asked questions that people will, are asking in your industry, answering them. Content will still work. It may not work as well as it has, obviously, in the last 5, 10 or longer. But it's still, it's interesting. Like I had somebody reach out to me on LinkedIn who found one of my articles through Perplexity, because you mentioned them before. And I was like, oh, so citations are still going to work to an extent.
Yeah.
So that means we're going to still need to put out the good content. And then, if people want to learn more and they come to the site, like you got to actually have that really good content, like we've both been saying here. So ultimately, a lot of it's still going to come back to that.
Karen, any thoughts on that?
I don't think that you can get away from really meeting your clients where they are. To Danny's point, you have to be able to speak their language. And as their language evolves, you have to kind of be at the forefront of it, which is not always easy. To his point, the tools, they give you some kind of trends, but, you can't predict, is the trend I'm starting to see of an upward filing, is that going to maintain, or is that just, a bunch of people got together, they're trying out this new word and it's actually going to transform from SEG to AI overview? And who could have predicted that?
Right. Yeah. Listening to both of you there, I always think about, the buyers and trying to get to your point, meet the clients where they are. And so, back to what Danny's original point is it seems to me what you've really got to focus on is making sure that the content about what you do and the problems that you specifically solve has to be the best content about what you do. And so that even if you're just getting them later in the buyer journey, when they come to you, they are like, wow, this just completely answers my questions. And I can't remember who's talked about FAQs, but FAQs is one way of sort of an entry point into that. Mm-hmm. And so what I take away from this is that, double down on the sort of the later stages of the buyer journey to make sure that you're getting people when they're sort of, maybe they've figured out what solutions they're specifically looking for, and they're trying to identify the top vendors for those solutions, is to make sure that you are really bulletproof on that stuff, that you've got your act together, you've got well-structured, well-written content, it's deep, and it's a great user experience. I mean, it seems basic, but frankly, I think that there's only so many hours in the day. So you're going to put your content writers on writing up a funnel stuff to try and get people earlier on. It's like, maybe we should just sort of, batten down the hatches and just focus on the stuff about us rather than trying to get people earlier in the buyer journey. Very, very interesting.
I think it might depend actually, Adam, on where it is that you're trying to get the attention, right? So if you're on a social platform, maybe it does make sense to be a little bit higher up on the funnel, because you might be attracting people who haven't heard of your brand, who aren't ready to buy, but they need the education and they aren't willing to look at, potential hallucinations to get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
For your site, I think lower in the funnels.
So what, I think about this personally because, I've had a number of, I would say, 50% our business comes from referrals, and 50% does not, comes from marketing. And a lot of that is search driven, search and social. And content is the keystone of that. And I've had several clients that I've just, like, people who've scheduled a meeting with me through the website. I didn't know who they were, and then found out they were a significant business, and they became clients. And I said, well, how did you find me? And he said, well, I was Googling about a particular topic, and I came across your site, and I read your content. I watched an old webinar of yours, and I started following you. I just thought, well, you seem to know what you're talking about. I don't need what you do now, but when I do need you, I'll get in touch with you. And that happens consistently. What worries me is that's going to happen less. So I got to figure that one out. So I'm glad I've got Karen to help me, and Danny, I'll probably rope you in too. Listen, you guys it's been a great conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. Any closing thoughts before we wrap this up?
I would just say, again, speaking to if this is a trend, Gartner, obviously, I'm not sure if you did hear it or not, but Gartner was predicting that within 2 years of this year, so that'll be 2026, that overall traffic to websites from search engines is going to go down by 25%. So this is why I really think, like, at this point, if you haven't thought about like social platforms or other things as search engines, start thinking of them that way, because that's especially too if you have more on the Gen Z or the younger type of audience that you're trying to reach. That's where they're searching. They're searching on TikTok right now, at least until they get potentially shut down in the US. But they're there right now. Obviously, they're still searching on other platforms too. So you just want to be findable anywhere that your audience could find you.
And the number 2 search engine is still Google, right? No, it's still YouTube. Still YouTube. Yeah.
Yes, right. YouTube. Yep. But
Karen, any closing thoughts?
Just don't give up. Keep creating the content and be yourself. Represent your brand to the best of your ability, and that's the best you can do.
Great. Thank you very both. Well, I'm gonna take you off screen now, and I'm gonna wrap things up. So thank you. I'm so grateful to both of them. My head's exploding. I've got so much to think about. I want to thank you also for listening. If this is the first one of these shows you've listened to, you can subscribe on any of the podcast applications, Spotify, Apple, whatever, Stitcher, whichever one you use. And there's also a YouTube video. And then what I will do with this is I'm going to turn this into, I'll write a blog post about this. So you should be able to read that. It'll be very actionable. So look out for that in the next week or so. And then big thank you, of course, to HIMS for all your support, and hope to see you on the next episode. And by the way, if you like this episode and you think somebody that might find it useful, just forward it to them. You can forward a link from the podcast or find the YouTube video and send that on. Anyway, thank you very much. Hope to see you soon. Bye.